Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the All Books Talks. And today, on 13th of March, we are going to review a beautiful book. Before we start with the book review, as we all know, nation is undergoing a great pandemic, and we all are trying to recover. And India stands as an exemplary thing to start vaccination to their nation as well as to the neighboring countries. So with this, we would like to share the small message which you have been hearing a lot on the ringtones: wear the mask, maintain the face and hand hygiene, and maintain the social distancing. So, this is a precautionary measure to everyone because this is something that is going to save us. And as we see, the vaccination drive is already going, but still, the number of cases at few of the states have increased to a tremendous thing. And in the prevention of that, we are just asking you to wear the mask, ensure that you're socially distant, and of course, you're maintaining the hand and the face hygiene. With this, let me start with the today's series that is on the Well Book Read series. And to have this series with me today, I have Jency J, who is joining us from Rasipuram. She is a teacher at SRB International Rasipuram, and though she has done her computer engineering, but since her calling was there in the teaching, inspired by her teacher, she has thought of undergoing such a beautiful and a front face warrior job of a teacher. She is highly attached with her students, and at the same time, she is doing an exemplary thing which has been noticed in many of our events, which you can see that how close she is with the teachers as well as with the students. And while I'm introducing Jency, I would like to tell you all that Jency is a person. Now you can see her on the screen. She is a passionate teacher, writer, and she completed her computer science in engineering from Chennai, worked in IT sector for 2 years. But then, since she was inspired by Ms. Bharti Mahadevan, who happens to be her inspiration for teaching, she has started working in IBPYP schools in Chennai and Rasipuram. And currently, as I've said, she is a part of SRB International School, and her aim is to make a difference in the life of little children and groom herself as a leader in the education sector. I welcome Jency to our show. And before I ask Jency to review or share the context of the book, I would like to tell you that Jency is going to review a beautiful book which is published in 1980. This is called One Child, a true story of a tormented 6-year-old and the brilliant teacher who has ensured that she is reaching out to memoir by a child psychologist. So it is a real story of a child psychologist, that is Torey Hayden, which will be reviewed by Jency J, who is joining us from Rasipuram today. So welcome, Jency, to the show, and we are really thankful to you that you have picked up such a beautiful topic to discuss today, because we all talk about the mainstream, but special child is a gifted child. So thank you so much for picking such a beautiful book. And before we start with the question answers or the formal things, I would like to understand from you that what exactly has made you to realize that this is something that you would like to review this book.
Thank you, Ms. Sunanda, for the wonderful introduction. And I would like to begin thanking Career Beacon for this wonderful thought of bringing up this series and nurturing our reading habits again. And when this idea came up, and I was thinking of the books that I had read recently. This one was not very recent, but it's very, very close to my heart because this is one of the books related to a teacher. And because I started reading the book when I was into the field, just into the field. I had this opportunity of reading the book, and it became very close to my heart. I had stolen so many thoughts from the book, and I had implemented them in my classroom as well. So this is very close to my heart as a teacher and as a writer as well. So in both ways, I'm attached to the book. So I didn't have too many thoughts or too many doubts about which book I'm going to pick when Career Beacon came up with the idea, when I knew I could go and talk about some book, One Shell was all that appeared before my eyes.
So sweet, Jency, that first of all, we are so thankful to you, to your principal, Subbalakshmi ma'am, because she's the one who keeps us inspiring and as a backbone to us. She always says that we are with you, and your students, your teachers, everyone participates in that. In fact, the first book was started by your school teacher only when we started with the series. So, Jency, here, coming straight to the questions. Before we go to the actual book review, that how many pages and everything, I would like to understand that what is the conscious plot of this book? What exactly this book is talking about?
This book is about the events that happen inside a classroom. This classroom is called a special classroom, but the school calls it a garbage classroom because this classroom is a special classroom, but there are other special classrooms in the school, classes for the special children, classes for children who are have some behavioral challenges, classes for the physically challenged children, and this class contains a set of children who cannot fall into any of those categories. So this is, we can call it an extra special class. The story revolves around this classroom and this teacher who's the author of the book also. Her name is Torey Hayden, and this teacher struggles with some 8 kids in her classroom. And as every year, every month, they are seeing a little progress, and there's hope for these children. And she's seeing a difference, and that's when she realizes this one child called Sheila is supposed to join her class after the Christmas break. And Sheila is a child whom she has seen in the paper, in the newspaper article. Sheila is a 6-year-old child who set ablaze a 3-year-old. I'm sorry, she's herself a small kid, and she sets a 3-year-old child on fire. And that article appears in the news, and Tori realizes that this child Sheila is going to enter her classroom. And whatever happens with Sheila, with Tori and the classroom, it's already a class of special children. And imagine having another child who's really extra special into the classroom. It brings a challenge to the hope of the entire classroom. But Tori takes up the challenge. She's a young teacher, and young teachers we're ready for challenges. And she takes her up, and she tries to discover what is behind this girl called Sheila. And that's the entire plot of the story. The emotional development that Sheila has to go through, and the she's a child who's gone through a lot of emotional and physical abuse, but on the contrary, she's a very brilliant child. So what happens between them is the story.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Jency, the way you have explained. And of course, I have read a couple of books by this author wherein she is writing a true story, things that can come up. So before, as you already said, the context of the book, um, anyone who would like to, read this book would like to have the aesthetic things into the place. So what is the how large is this book, what is the volumes, is it a part of series and everything. So before we go to the actual context of the book, let's understand that how is the book looking like, and how many pages does it attach. So if you can share something about it.
So I was very excited. I just brought the book along with me to show all of you. This is like a, around a 300-page book, if you can see how big this is. But I'm sure the content in the book, makes you uh, just sit down and read cover to cover. And even before coming for the program, I actually had the book borrowed and I had read it. But when I thought I'm going to the program, I bought one again, and I read it cover to cover. So the book is like 300 pages, but I'm sure that if you have to read it at one stretch, it's not going to let you stop there. And the story is so interesting that this also has a sequel, and you will not be ready to stop even after the last page of the book.
Wow. So, what Jency has said is 300 pager, and once you start, you cannot stop because you are going to flow with this book. So, Jency, since we are talking about the aesthetic and everything, I would like to know that do you think Torey Hayden has put the words in a simpler form or in a complex form? Who would be interested in reading this book?
I think Tori has made it very simple for everyone. And especially if you're a teacher, there are wonderful tips that you can gather from this book. And of course, a lot to know about parenting from this book. You get to understand what is happening to your child when because of the setup at home, or you get to know as a teacher, you get to know what's happening behind every child and what's happening inside the mind of every child. You get to know all that when you read this book. And for that reason, I believe everybody should get an equal opportunity to read this book. This is not something confined to teachers. I would say it is for all teachers and non-teachers as well. You just need to step into our shoes and just see what we are doing.
Thank you so much. Yes, Jansi, I would say as we all have been hit by this pandemic, and after the big salute to the soldiers who are there in the border who are safeguarding us, and the frontline workers who were the health workers, I believe the third place is not replaceable for anyone, but it's teachers and the education fraternity, and it's a real privilege that you are a teacher and you understand all of the sudden the shift has happened from the chalk and talk method from the classroom to a virtual classroom wherein you are also taking ahead with the new technologies. So a great salute to all the teachers, because all of you have worked together in a binded manner that none of the academic session can actually hamper. So a big hand and a big loud applause for all the teachers. And this goes without saying to all the people who are watching us right now, that teaching fraternity has been immensely evolved during this COVID, and we all have high regards for this profession. Please ensure that if your child is really looking for such a kind of profession, please do go for it, because the most noble profession which can ever think of is a teaching profession. Now, moving ahead, Jency, I would like to know, you have already set the context of things. So, while reading this book, how long has it taken? Though you said that you cannot set your time apart in case if you're reading this book, I would like to know a bit about it so that our people who are listening to you, when they are motivated this book, they should be able to categorize their time for that.
Yeah, I would suggest that even if you're not a voracious reader, you will find this book very simple and it is understandable. Tori has used a wonderful, simple language for all of us to understand. You don't have to really look into the dictionary often or anything. So even if you're not a very voracious reader, you can set aside an hour or two, and you will be able to complete this entire book in a week. If you are able to set aside 1 hour a day, you'll be able to finish this in a week. And yeah, and but I have to re-emphasize that you will not be able to stop within an hour.
That's so beautiful, Jency. I think you're too much carried away by this book, something which is very close to you. When you borrowed it initially to read, but now that you are reviewing it, you just thought of buying it. And of course, I'm sure while I was reading the previous books, what he has written, and now even I am motivated that I should be reading this book, because this would be a showcase of the teacher journey with a special child. So, you are teaching to a mainstream students, right? How teaching to a mainstream teachers as a subject teacher and as a special educators, what is the main difference between them? I'm sorry, I'm asking you without the context of this question, but now that it's very close to you, I just thought I should be putting that forward.
Yes, certainly it is a question very much related, and I'm already popping with the answer. And we really don't know the what's going behind every child's mind. We really don't know what emotional trauma they might be going into. They may be in a normal classroom setup, but we do not know that there is some reason behind the way they behave. When I'm not a special educator. Very unfortunately, I'm not one. I'm not qualified yet, but in my classroom, I give a very special attention to each one of my children. And that's what I learned from my teacher. Each one of us felt so special that I became a teacher because of her. So the same thing that I want to carry away in my children. A special educator, though, that's a person specially designed to meet the emotional needs. The special student is identified in a normal classroom only. And we should ensure that every classroom is equipped enough to accommodate all different kinds of children. We are not like we don't have a template for a classroom. We can't say that this is the emotional development that my children need to have, this the academic development. No, children come in with all different mindsets, with all different colors in the inside their hearts. So I personally, being a teacher, was able to put myself in Tori's place when I read the whole book. In fact, I started being there for every child. this though the story is one child, Tori says that she was able to see every single child of hers in that one child. So that one child, Sheila, somehow inside her, she consisted of all the children that Tori has seen before. So the same thing applied to me when there was one child in the classroom who was, when others try to give up on the child, and if you are there for that one child, that makes all the difference. And with keeping that in mind, I don't think we have a very much of a difference between a normal teacher and a teacher handling special children. I think they need to be accommodated in inside every classroom.
So beautifully you mentioned that, all the special childrens are someone who are recognized during a normal classroom. Yes, do agree. That's the reason I believe CBSE has come out with this concept that we should be, coming out with a special educator in the class, and there should be a space to all for all these people. Now, with this, I would like to come to a second question. You know, I'm sure you are feeling that, and I can feel that vibration there. How did these characters, when you mentioned Sheila is someone, Tori is someone, are there any other characters who are there with you, in
Yes.
this book?
Majorly, though the story revolves around Tori and Sheila, the class also has an assistant, someone to assist Tori. He is Anton, and he is the one who's, handling the children. Physically, somebody needs to be there because it's a class of children who, cannot have their behavior in a proper way at all times. And there are children who get very, physically disabled children who are challenged and cannot keep up their posture, cannot keep up their calm at all times. So we have Anton, and then we have the mother and father of Sheila. Sheila's mother is not much into the picture because she abandons her child at a very young age. The father is in picture, and the father, alcoholic father, is still in picture. And there is Uncle Jerry who uses Sheila for inappropriate reasons, and the classroom of children who are very special, and each one of them has got their own description of how special they are. So it's a lively classroom, and people revolving around them.
I can feel that kind of classroom when you mentioned that, you know, the students are special, and out of which Sheila is quite special because she has been having an abusive family. So here, a tip to all the parents: see, none of us want a special child. Yes, they are God gifted, they are especially able. Every one of us is looking for a normal child, but God forbid, if you have a child at your home who is special, just think of that God has come to you to get the services in hand. You will not find, you can go to the idols, you can go to the church, mosque, and everywhere. You can worship a person. But, as it is said that serve to a human and be a human, that is what, where you are going to serve to the God. So that is a beautiful message which is coming to it. So, while Jency, even I'm getting emotional when you are talking about this thing. So, how did this make you feel when you were reading this book?
When I read this book, I was able to make a lot of personal connections, and I should say that it changed me as a person. And I started taking extra efforts, and right now, no child could annoy me to the extent that I will give up on the child. That has never happened. After reading this book, I just nurtured into a, I was just then into teaching, but then I was very blessed to have this book during my initial days, and I nurtured into a different kind of a teacher where I was never ready to give up on any of my children. I've had children as young as 7 or just 8-year old children telling me literally, these kids are very smart, they're able to verbalize everything. The child just asked me, I know that I'm behaving very bad. Why don't you give up on me? Why don't you do what others do me? Ask me to go and stand outside the classroom. Do that with me. Just leave me. Why are you staying there? Why are you taking so much efforts? So the child realizes that we are doing something extra, and this really impacted me personally, and that's how I started touching the students. And I just passed it on, from I had received it from Tori, and I think I had passed it on to some children that I had been in the same classroom with.
So beautifully, Jency, you mentioned. Of course, when we read such kind of books or when we get inspired by the book, our perspective towards the whole world actually changes. So I can quite resonate about that thing. Now, when you are reading this book, there are so many characters. So I would like to know, because now the anxiety or the surprisingness or the core content is so much overwhelming, I cannot resist to ask you this question. What happens and what is the storylines of this book?
Okay, as I told you, the story begins with Sheila entering into this classroom, and when Sheila is, a child who has encountered the police 3 times. She's got cases on her because she set ablaze a child on, she literally lit fire on a child, and she's supposed to go to a hospital for her mental issues, but right now there are no places, and she has to be left in a special classroom. But during the encounter, when Sheila behaves very aggressive and everything, and then she starts settling in, Tori realizes accidentally that this child is of a very high IQ. So how can this child be so intellectual? At when she's just 6, she's able to know very fancy words and she's able to read magazines. So this, Tori, this teacher, does not want this child to go back to the state hospital. She wants to do something to prove that this child needs to be accommodated, because this child is already abandoned by the mother, and because of that they had left her in the house of relatives, and they were not treating her properly. She was found on the streets with a lot of scars all over her. They had beaten her up and all that, so they left her with the alcoholic father. So the father also was not in a proper state of mind to take care of the child. So the life of the child has to take a different direction, and Tori knew that only with education that can be done. So Tori tries everything that she can, and she tries to make people understand what she is able to see in Sheila. So she takes her into the IQ tests and everything, and she brings the child to a different level. This child, the major problem that Sheila had was she was rejected so many times that she's never felt the love, even of a mother, even of a parent or a sibling or anything, that she started doing things that would make her more unlovable. She wants to accept the rejection. She doesn't want to be rejected for no reason. She wants to do things so that the rejection that is already happening is justified for herself. So she starts doing things that are very aggressive. So Tori identifies all that as a teacher and as an education, as a psychologist. She identifies everything and she brings her up to a very good level. And from there, there is a huge setback for Sheila once again. When we near the closure of the book, there's a huge setback that she's also physically abused by her own uncle. So there comes the big block again for Tori. Is the child going to overcome this or not? Physically she is all fine, it can be cured, but mentally Tori has done so much to bring the child to where she is right now. Now she's not hitting anybody in the classroom or running around, but she's a properly dressed a good girl sitting there and participating in the class. When Sheila enters the class initially, she grabs goldfish out of the aquarium and she pokes their eyes out with pencil. She wants to be so unlovable, but this girl has groomed into such a beautiful little girl that Tori can accommodate in the classroom. But because of this huge setback, what is going to happen to Sheila is where the story takes a different turn.
Wow, such a beautiful review. And this brings to, I wish Kavita could have done this, show with us today. Because she is a child psychologist, and at times she, when she is actually counseling or uh, doing the counseling session, she always says that every child has a story behind how the feelings come. And when you are talking, I can actually relate what she always talks about of the counseling psychology. So we are missing you, Kavita, in this show, because you are the right person to ask these questions, as you would have resonated with that. With this, Jency, I would like to understand, towards the storyline that you said, that she's a girl who is not taken care by her parents. She's having a verbally abused father who is abusing her. Then there is an uncle who is a twist, who has physically abused her. But I also read while I was searching, because I have to prepare for the session, that she was a person who was abused, and she was not able to, should have not never been conceived in future. Maybe something has happened on that. I really wonder that how people can be such inhumane, especially with a special able child. Here, a point to be noted for all the educators and teachers when Jency was mentioning that this girl was trying herself to be unlovable, because she wants justifying that, yes, I'm unlovable because of these things. So, inadvertently or advertently, please do not hurt a child, may it be your child or a neighboring child or in your classroom, because any words that we have spoken leave a great impact on child's heart. And as you know, the nation is actually built by the children, and we are a youth rich country. In case if your youth is not having a good childhood, we will never have a great nation ahead. So, with this, I would like to come to a question to you, Jency. What is your recommendation to the audience while you, as a teacher, when you're reading, when as a parent you're reading, or someone who would like to be a special educator? How is that matching up?
I would definitely, first of all, recommend every teacher to read because you will see yourself there. And everyone who is not a teacher, I think you still need to read because you need to understand what a teacher does inside the classroom. We think of a teacher as someone who's managing 30 children or 60 children at the time, but we are there for each one of those children. We are making a difference in each of their lives. So, when you read, I would definitely recommend you to place yourself in different positions. Think of your teacher and think if you are a teacher or if you are an adult who can influence a child, think of those children in the places of these kids. And I think this is a story where you will not just resonate with one character. You can place yourself in different characters, and you can definitely look into your own life and map characters to it and acknowledge different people. I think there will be a lot of personal discoveries as you read through this book.
Absolutely, Jency, I totally agree to it, because to understand in a classroom of 60 people or 40 students, and everyone is sitting and the teacher is standing and pointing it out. First of all, the stress of completion of the course, the stress that the course should be administered properly so that everyone understands. On top of that, a special child. I'm sure a teacher is playing a multiple role. Like we have a Parents' Day, Women's Day, and all these special days. I think teacher has got a multiple role, and hats off to all the teaching fraternity. I'm sure during the COVID, the special educator teachers would have gone an extra mile, because they have to constantly keep in touch with these people. So, Jency, as a teacher, do you think, not only as a special child like Sheila, uh, is there any incident that you remember where you would like to quote that how you have managed to evolve the story of a child, or how you have created an impact?
Okay, personally, as I told you, I was able to connect with so many of my own kids. So I was personally able to connect a lot with the child who is highly energetic, and people tend to give up on the child, and they look at me like, oh my God, you are handling. Oh God, hats off to you. And that's how they had high regards of me because I was his teacher. So even the child was very clear and aware of it, and I was able to understand the child was trying to do more and more naughty things because the child was trying to justify why he was not being accepted. And I had a similar incident in my classroom where it was some kind of a function, and we had just completed everything and all children had gone home. This child was very naughty, roaming around, and I just sat there. And it was the same scene that happened with Tori and Sheila. I just sat there and I said, I don't understand what you're doing, but when you are done, come back to me. I need to talk to you. He went around on and on and on, and he was waiting for me to say, that is it, let's go home. I don't want to handle you. But I was never reaching that point. All children were going home, all teachers were going home, but I was just there for the child. And then at some point, the child gave up and came and sat down next to me and started crying. And that's when he asked me, why didn't you give up on me? That's not what people usually do. Why don't you just say, go, you were naughty, that is it, but this is who you are, just go home. That's what teachers want from you. That's what people. That's how people treat me. But why do you do this? Why do you want me to change? Is what the child came up with. There, I was able to. That's something I learned from Torey actually when she encounters Sheila once. When Sheila is very aggressive and trying not to be caught, she was running inside the gym, and all that Torey did was shut the doors and just sat down, waiting for the child to gain trust on Torey so that she can come near and feel that okay, this is a favorable woman and I can go with her, she's trustworthy. So I think we all have a struggle in gaining the trust of children, especially when we work with children of very lower grades, young children. We do have to do a lot of work to gain the trust of a child. I also had a child who wouldn't speak much. So his other teachers, they're very much aware of this child because he doesn't speak much. All that he wanted was he wanted me to come along with him to take his bag or something from somewhere. I just told, let me stand here, you go and pick it and come. The child has a lot of trust issues. All that he told me was, you will not be there when I come back. I will go pick my bag, but you will not be there when I come back. I know you're going to go back to classroom. But I wanted that experiment to happen. I said, just check where I'm standing. You just take a look at where I'm standing. You go pick your bag, and when you come back, you will just find me there. So the child was, taking some time to find where I was standing. I was very particular not to move an inch because he's very smart. So he'll think, did you even try to move that I caught you in the action? So the child came back, and when he saw me back there in the same place again, he was so happy. He started telling me, okay, now I should have trusted you. You are still there. So, we have to do, sometimes it's very silly, it's very dramatic, but we need to do all these so that the child is able to gain trust on the adult. So that paves the way to academics. That's part two of the story. So that's where we need to begin. And in that way, I was able to resonate a lot with Torey Hayden.
Beautifully explained, Jency. The real life example where you have made an attempt to win the trust of a child. It's very easy to say I love you, but it's very hard to say I trust you. So hats off to you for this. And I can see that this is boiling down to the results, but because whenever we are doing such series, I could see small kids, like we had uh, Embassy Prabhu, or this guy, who was there last week, right? Uh, Everyone was so tiny, and the science day one, where your class one student has ensured that she's giving a presentation. I can see the kind of motivation that comes from the top down approach, where Ms. Subbalakshmi is actually guiding her teachers, and her teachers are in result ensuring that the kids are there. So that's a leadership quality, or a true educator quality, that you are having a drill down approach wherein you're connecting personally with the people. So definitely, that's a real good thing that you have mentioned. Now, while the time is clicking, and let's be very short on a couple of questions. uh, I'm sure you have enjoyed this book. That's the reason why you have picked it up. So do you think any reader can enjoy this book, or if not, what is a particular age group that a person should read this book?
Since it has got certain things that children need not be exposed to, I would have definitely told that, this book is for adults. But when I went through, I actually found that a 9-year-old girl had read this book and she was so inspired that she had turned out to be an education psychologist today. 18 years ago, when she was just 9, she read the book. So I would generally recommend any individual who's ready to understand the concept to read the book, preferably teens and the rest of them.
Brilliant. Of course, the certain times the books inspire, and that is the reason why, while we started with the adults with the book review section, many of the students have come and who said that they would like to review the book. And the example is your school students. There are other school students who have joined us and read this book series. And tomorrow, the audience who are going to watch us today, a request that please join us tomorrow at 4:30, because we will be with Priyanshu Pandey, who is going to review a book, The Power of Habits. And I'm sure this book is again something on the self improvement. For those who haven't yet caught our attention through our current edition, we have published a book review by Shubham Loshali, who spoke about that, how what are the keys to success, how to do it. While Kavita was actually discussing with the students that they are picking up either the storybooks, but these students, some of the students have come out with the self-help books, those books which are really required to be read by the students of all the ages, so that we develop the power of habit. So do not miss tomorrow's episode. And before I leave, a good note with Jency on today's review, I'm left with two questions which have just come to me from the audience. And if you allow, Jency, I will take it up. In case if you would have been an author, would the ending that has come to this story, would you have done something differently, or you would have stayed with the same ending?
I think Tori has done a fantastic job, and I don't think touching it will be. It's like putting my hand into a jelly, a bubbling jelly. I wouldn't go and put my hand into that. So this is a beautiful story as such.
Okay, thank you so much. Um, so we understand that this book has really impacted you to a great extent, because you have changed the perspective which you have given as a live example, and you mentioned it throughout the book. It has holded the attention, though it's a 300 pages one. Sometimes the author, even I am, nevertheless to say, I'm a ghostwriter, and sometimes we have to put ourselves into the shoes of others, and we have to think like them before we are writing onto it. Do you think this story, though it says that it is inspired by the true story, is there anything which is not real in the story which have been mentioned?
I think this is completely a true story, and only the characters and behaviors of some children they are changed, tweaked a little to protect the identity of the people. But otherwise, the story is real, and it is true, and of course believable and relatable. In fact.
Yeah, in fact, if we would have not seen the incident of 16 December, the Nirbhaya case, we would have never thought that men could be so brutal among the women, that after sexually abusing them, they are hurting them to an extent that the person can die, or rupture all the body parts so that they cannot see the semen thing. But this is the similar thing which has happened with Sheila also, which you could relate when you are reading throughout the book and you come across that the uncle has actually physically tortured her to an extent that she was having a cuts in the private parts, and she cannot conceive in the future. I don't know how inhumane that character was, but yes, the characters like them are really existing in our society. The live case is Nirbhaya case. Well, we are towards the end of the session, and we should ensure that the person who has been with us throughout the session and has done a justice to such a beautiful book to bring us in front of us, we should share a vote of thanks for our, or sharing a message of gratitude, a certificate of appreciation. So Jency, this goes to you, without saying, from the end of the Career Beacon, in recognition of your acting speaking in today's well read webinar series, for reviewing such a beautiful book, One Child by Torey Hayden.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sunanda. It was such a pleasure to be in the platform and share about the book that had impacted me the most.
Thank you so much. Before we end up today's session, any parting words?
I would like to acknowledge and bring to notice Miss Bindu, who shared this book with me, a teacher friend, and she's a very voracious reader, and she just shared this book with me, and that's how I got this. And I also happened to buy the sequel of it and read it all by myself. And I would love to tell you that please keep friends with you who are very good readers. They are knowledge, and they you get everything for free when you have friends like that.
So true, Jency. Friends are the people who make you grow, and these are the people who ensure that you are doing well. And as you rightly said, people who are voracious readers or someone who is actually fond of reading is the person who will try to educate the other person. So, as all of you know, myself and Kavita pair a lot on certain things. So we ensure that whatever we are reading, if we come across any of the web link, we come across any of the thing, we ensure that we are streaming with each other, we are sharing with each other, so that we are equally educated. And believe me, all the students, all the parents who are listening to us, this is a very common saying that always I say, that you are an average of 5 people around you. And this is not me who is saying, it is said by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And of course, there are multiple foreign authors who have come across and they said that, you're an average of 5 people. But believe me, this is where the friends truly impact. If you are good friends, it is an old saying that let me know who are your friends and I'll tell you what is the kind of character you are. And again, there is another extended arm of it, that let me know who is your greatest enemy, greatest inspiration or an enemy, then I'll tell you what is your character. So that's going without any say. Jency, thanks a lot for such a lovely review of such an emotional book. And I can see that the kind of way that you are resonating. And last week, when we were with an author who was Ganesh, and we were reviewing the beautiful book by the Ruskin Bot, I can see the kind of efforts that you have put as a teacher so that they are making the show greater. Thank you so much. And with this, we would like to reiterate on again the message, as the notion is going throughout the COVID. Please ensure that you're wearing the mask, ensure your face and mouth, hands hygiene, and maintain the social distancing. Do not forget to join us. Do not forget to subscribe us, because we are going to come up with various other educational series which would really help you to uplift. And as many of us would like to read the books, but we still feel that reading a book will take so much of time, that's the reason why this Well Book Read series have been curated. And tomorrow, please join us with Priyanshu Pandey to understand the power of habit. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you so much, Jins.
Thank you once again. Thanks to the team for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Stay safe.